guys, Alicia Wright with eXp Realty.
Gene Agustin with the Lending Collective.
We are here to talk we're smoking cigars, and we're here to talk with you about something that isn't as happy this week. Sometimes we get calls, right, Gene, where it's we're celebrating someone's new adventure.
Yep.
You're moving on, you're upsizing, you're downsizing, it's a new adventure. And sometimes we get calls where it's not all that happy. It's sensitive because something has forced the sale.
Yep.
So we're going to talk a little bit today about death, divorce, and some unexpected circumstances that would force someone into selling their property.
Yeah.
We're not going to give legal advice. We have a whole team of people that we trust for the CPAs, attorneys. So if you need a resource for that, we are happy to put you in touch with someone. We're talking to you today about the real estate dimension, the real estate side of how practically to split assets to or not, and what to do. Okay.
I love this topic, not because you're taking something that's highly emotional, and I'm very sensitive to that. But because I'm a numbers guy, I always approach it from a numbers perspective. And so I try to, I'm very sensitive to the situation. Right. We're talking about, death and divorce. So I always try to stay emotionally connected, but stay grounded with, hey, here are the facts, here are the numbers.
Right.
And
that's really important.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Important. When I lost my mom, I lost both my parents. When I lost my mom specifically, I was simultaneously going through a divorce. And it is to have someone who can help separate the emotions from the real estate decisions that need to be made is so important. Someone who can navigate the intricacies of those emotions, those feelings, and how to bring it all together, how to help with the communication.
Yeah.
I mean, just so valuable.
Yeah. I remember the first time this situation happened to me, where I had a client approach me. These are two of my most favorite clients. I was probably 15 years, maybe longer into my career. And I'd helped them several times, with purchases and refinances. And when they came to me with, we are splitting up, it really rocked me, because I knew them before I was married to Jen. And I just remembered, signing with them and seeing their kids and their family. And I always wanted to emulate that with my family.
Yeah.
And then when they came to me saying they were going through this split and divorce, it was hard not to get emotional.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, just speaking from experience, it's a financial hit.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get a divorce.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, you kind of do if you have some problems, and it's the better. People obviously make that decision because it's better in the long run, but in the middle of it, in the beginning of it, it's painful. And we're talking about some questions. We're going to ask some questions. We're going to talk about 3 different scenarios that pop up. It's death and inheritance. It's do you want to keep the property, or do you need to sell the property?
Yeah.
There's a few scenarios that pop up. And what about buying out one party?
Yeah.
Can you buy out a person instead of just is selling absolutely necessary?
Yep.
So
I love this too. So the bulk of my business come from my fiduciary partners and estate planners for this very situation.
Same.
It seems very complicated, but the reality is, again, it's just numbers. So when I treat like death and inheritance in terms of how we structure the transaction, the process is very similar.
Yes.
And so we always want to, whether it's death and inheritance or divorce, we always want to establish like a baseline, right?
Yes.
And
there's a framework.
Yeah, and when I say establish a baseline, it's, what is the asset or the property worth when you divide it? So meaning, if you sold it to market, what would you net? And then from that's the number that we have to divide and split up.
Right. So if you're getting a divorce, your attorney determines what you're entitled to our job, my job as a realtor, is once we know that and what needs to happen with the property, how do we execute a plan that protects the value of the property?
Yeah.
So there are there's a framework that we work under. Authority, who has the authority to sell the property or say what happens to the property. Then we talk about the value. We talk about the condition. Sometimes siblings and you're inheriting a property, they don't always agree. And sellers who are getting a divorce, they're not longer working on the same team.
Yeah.
So, we have to figure out value and condition. And sometimes, we had one buyer put an offer on a property recently, and the owner had passed away, and the siblings did some updating to the property because that property had been owned by their parents for years, probably 30 years. And it needed some work. It needed some updating. And they chose to do some things that I found interesting because that seemed to me a bit like over improving the property. And I think they spent probably close to $100,000.
Wow.
To rehab the property, which they did not make back.
Yeah.
So our buyers put in an offer on the property, and appraisal came in, and it was like, I don't know, 30 something thousand less than what the asking price was. I think those sellers, they were not our clients. Our clients were the buyers, and we found them a different property because the sellers didn't want to budge on that price.
So they basically over remodeled,
improved the property
based on what the market, and they wanted to recoup their with their investment. Yeah.
I think some of the siblings were like, and I've had this, with different clients of my own as well. Like some people think, oh, we have to rehab it like this, and you end up spending a lot of money. And most people who aren't rehabbing properties for a living, they don't know what to pick. They don't know what's cost efficient, right? They don't know what kinds of things they should update. And so they end up updating it in a way that they might like, but they can overspend. It can easily overspend. And if you're getting a divorce, I mean, I know from my personal experience, you're not agreeing on much. And how are you going to agree on what things to do to the property if you can't even talk to each other? So we have authority, we have the value and condition, we have timing, we have strategy, and communication. Communication is so important, and that's where that's Gene and I's wheelhouse, really. Gene, how do you bring everyone together? You have this very peaceful, sweet, honest way of getting people open and on the same page. So
let's talk about, for example, if mom and dad pass away and we're inheriting this property. So let's say we were dealing with siblings, right? Mm-hmm. So I typically will schedule a consultation with the siblings to figure out what's the balance of if there's a mortgage in the property, mm-hmm. right? And then from there, we'll reach out to, usually we've got a realtor involved. Mm-hmm. We'll ask the realtor, if the property's sold, what would it sell for?
Right.
Right.
Like in its current condition.
In its current condition,
mm-hmm.
right? And so from there, we just run the numbers. So you're going to clear, 100,000 or 200,000 divided 4 ways, right? That's our baseline. So we know, okay, each sibling is going to walk away with roughly, $50,000 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now if one sibling says, I want to buy this out, and I see this all the time. Mm-hmm. So then we look at what the buyout is for the other siblings,
right?
Plus the mortgage,
right?
And that's going to be, when I say mortgage, that's the payoff of the existing loan,
right? And
so the payout to the siblings plus the existing loan mm-hmm. will be the new loan that we'll have to take out to buy out the siblings,
right?
And so then we have to make sure that there's enough, value in the property so that the loan to value works out.
Yes.
And then the sibling that's taking out the new loan, we try to identify whether or not they can qualify for the mortgage. So
right. Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah, once we establish that baseline.
Once you establish the authority, who has the authority to sell the property.
Yeah, that one we've already sorted out.
That one sorted out.
Yeah.
And then what do you see as the most common? Do you think that, or do you think it's a mixed bag? Most commonly, do you see one? And I mean, this gets into Prop 19, and you'll have to talk to your tax professional about this, about keeping the tax basis and what happens when you inherit a property. can you keep the same tax basis if you're an heir to the property? And we have to we have to identify. And attorneys are going to do this for you. Like, is it in a trust? Is it going to go through probate? Is it, getting the probate process approved? There's a lot that goes on there.
Yeah.
And once that's established, do you think that do you see most families wanting to, one party wants to move into the property and own it, or do you see most of the time siblings want to just sell it and take their portion of the inheritance?
Majority of the time when I get involved, it's usually one party wants to buy out the other, right? And I'm sure there's times where they can't, and that's, again, once we start running the numbers and can that person qualify? If they can and they're comfortable with the payments, we issue an approval. That approval usually goes back to the attorney. If it's going through probate, that letter goes to the courts to show that they're approved.
Yeah.
If it's in an estate, it's easy. It's just the executor of the trust just has to agree to it,
Right.
and then we get the payoff. And we basically treat it like a refinance, not a purchase. So the estate is deeding the property over to the sibling that's purchasing the property, and then because we'll handle it as a rate and term because it's a buyout of siblings.
Yes.
So now they're on title. We do the loan, and at closing, the estate is deeding off, and then we're paying off the mortgage, and then we're buying out the siblings. That's what we typically see.
Right.
But I'm sure there's times where they realize, like, oh shoot, I can't
Or maybe
qualify
they
this.
each have their own home already and don't want to move into the property.
That's typically what happens.
Yeah.
Like, brother or sister already has a house. The younger brother, one of the siblings, doesn't. And so they're like, okay, we'll let the sibling that doesn't have the house buy it.
So I've seen sometimes people make these emotional decisions to because they don't want to deal with they want to delay the pain of having to sell the property. Like, they make the decision to buy the property and move in, but it may or may not be the best financial decision or the best purchase for them. It's so emotional. So you do have to kind of tease out the emotion a little bit and look at, can I afford this property? And the same thing with the divorce. It goes that way too.
Yeah.
The payment, I think a lot of people, the misunderstanding that I think some couples have is that the payment will stay the same if one person buys out the other person, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
so the process is
how does that
identical.
work? Yeah.
So we establish the baseline, like if we sold, right? And let's say the gross proceeds is 200,000, husband, wife, each partner walks away with 100.
Right.
So that's our baseline. And I tell the clients, I said, listen, we're just giving you the foundation to begin negotiations, right? If you're going to walk away with 100 and 100, and let's say you have a mortgage of 5, the new loan that we would have to take out is 6 to buy out, husband or wife.
Right.
And but I also say that number, again, it's just the baseline. You can say, all right, well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, divide our assets X, Y, Z, and then we just start. Once we have that baseline established, we start the negotiations from there.
Yes.
And the feedback I get from my attorneys is, we love when you have that conversation with our clients because I can articulate numbers really well.
Yeah.
They go, it just makes, again, what is a highly emotional process
Very stressful.
a lot easier to navigate because then they realize, like, it's just numbers.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter, again, when going back to your question whether or not it's right to do the buyout, that's why we established, like, here's the number. Yeah. Are you comfortable with that payment?
Right.
And if you are, and you can qualify.
And comparing that to the other options out there. Every month, the decision that gets delayed to sell the property, you're still having to make the mortgage payment. You're still having to pay the utilities. One person's still having to do that. And there are some cases I've seen where one person doesn't want to sell the property, and it gets difficult. It gets...
I have that situation right now with 2 clients in particular. And it's been an ongoing talk for the last 6 months.
Right. And sometimes it's, the party who didn't make the choice, it has to get there.
Yeah.
They don't want to get there, but they have to get there at some point.
Yeah.
And it's a hard process. Like, if they didn't ask for this, it's a huge financial hit, and they didn't ask for it. So it's really a delicate situation to walk through. And I think one thing that Gene's really good at, and I've developed this over the years as well, is being a reliable, trustworthy person that both parties can know is working towards the ultimate aim of preserving the value of the property and helping both parties get as much as they can for the property.
Yeah.
And the communication is different. You don't all, sometimes everything's copacetic and you can sit in the same room, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be a little bit of the go between both parties if they're not really talking to each other, and it does make things a little more complicated, and the process takes a little longer.
Yeah.
But I mean, did you tell me recently you have somebody? Oh, well, maybe I don't know if you don't want to share that or not. That's fine.
Oh, no,
But,
let's see.
Somebody that you've been working with that they were trying. They're trying to split the property, and what did you tell me about it? That they're trying to split the property, and that they're getting a divorce, and that one person is still there.
Yeah. This is one of the two that I'm working with right now.
Mm-hmm.
The one person is still in the property, and even though the numbers make sense, so the other person living in the house wants to stay in the house, but they can't qualify. The person that moved out wants to buy them out. And sometimes it's just a mess because there's so much animosity.
Right. And one thing I think that when you're stuck in the weeds of the pain of the situation, you cannot see the other side.
Yeah.
And the other side is the longer it gets drug out, the more painful it becomes.
Yeah.
You lose more and more money. The timing of the sale is hard. Maybe the property falls into somewhat of maybe you had maintained your property beautifully, but if it's taking 6 months and you're not maintaining the property because you just can't because you're going through it, that affects the sale of the property too.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I see this often. So husband and wife decide they're going to split, and let's just say the wife stays in the property, and the husband leaves.
Yeah.
And is no longer participating in making like the mortgage payments and the property. I see this all the time too. So they've been out for 6 months, and then they finally come to the realization, all right, that we're gonna sell. Wife wants to buy out the husband. So my question is, does the appreciation continue, or does it stop when the husband left? Say it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, attorneys have to decide that.
Yeah.
I mean, just from my own personal experience, like the attorney, there is a calculation that attorneys use, and the court system uses to figure out who. This is what the house was worth on this date when you left. And splitting assets is very complicated. They have to run like a quadro to figure out, whose is what, and it's expensive to run that. Those data points are expensive to figure out. So, if you can get to at least some kind of agreement that, if one person can afford it, great. But, just to avoid the situation and have one person stay there and make the payment thinking that that's enough. I've seen people make some bad financial decisions in that regard. And I mean, if you can work together, that's phenomenal. I have some friends that have pulled it off better than anyone I've ever seen. And if you can, think high level and, push through some of the difficult parts, it is beneficial to both parties. Yeah. And, it is something that we can help navigate, and we've done it a lot. So
my take is whatever you do, get with your mortgage advisor and your realtor as soon as possible.
Right.
And figure out how to divide the asset, and then from there you can start game planning on how whether someone is, and again, this applies to both situations.
Yes.
Death and inheritance, or divorce and split.
Yes.
Getting your lender and your realtor involved early on.
Yes.
To help establish these baselines is very important. But also, it's going to save you money, because if you're dealing with an attorney, they're billing you on the clock.
Yep.
Whereas we'll talk to you for free and give you really, really good advice.
Yeah.
And again, this is why my divorce attorneys love, when they send their clients my way, because I'm going to help them navigate through a lot of the numbers.
Yes.
And then the attorneys, will work on, helping split the rest of the assets.
Yes.
A misconception I get, and I deal with this again quite a bit, is, spouses are splitting, and they've got this killer interest rate,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so
yeah.
they don't want to lose the rate.
Right.
So
I think you have to really assemble the right team, and it's hard to figure out, like, it's hard to navigate these difficult choices when you're emotional, but to assemble the right team, a team that you trust and both parties can trust, at least to a certain extent, to figure that out is the best way of handling it. Because if you're not sure, then you're kind of like dealing with it blow by blow. Again, if you can kind of get the team together and have a high level conversation with everyone and try to extract the emotionality out of it as best, just step back from it as best as you can. It's like going to benefit you the best in the long run. We have like I have some questions that people have asked me about divorce specifically, like who communicates with the agent, who communicates with the lender.
Yeah.
Like in the process, who's going to be the lead communicator? And if maybe it's both, we have to explain instead of to one party, to one group.
Yeah.
We are explaining it separately to each group.
Well, let me hold on before we jump there, because that's great too.
Mm-hmm.
Let me finish the misconception, right?
Sorry.
That's all good. So the misconception is, hey, I've got this killer rate.
Yes.
We don't want to refinance, so
Right.
one of the spouse that's going to do the buyout will use whatever assets they have to buy out the other spouse. Let's say it's the wife buying out the husband. The husband signs a quitclaim, which relinquishes his interest in the property.
They deed off.
And they'll deed off, and they'll have some type of contract that the attorney drafts saying that they're no longer financially obligated to the property or to the mortgage.
Yeah.
And what I tell them all the time is that contract does not supersede the note that you signed. You're still in the hook for that mortgage.
You have to, yes.
If the wife
right.
does not, if they decide that we're not going to make payments on this, it's not only going to ding her credit report, it's going to ding his. So the only way to relinquish, so I say you got to deed off, which relinquishes your interest in the property. You got to refinance to pay off the existing mortgage.
Right.
That's the only way that you remove your financial obligations.
I saw someone do this, and it didn't come up until I think it was the husband in the situation went and got remarried, and maybe like a year later, and wanted to buy a house with their new partner, and they couldn't qualify for a loan because they're still on the old mortgage.
Yeah, and they're like, I'm not on.
Oh no, what do we do?
Yeah. So that's why, going back to what Alicia was saying, assembling the right team early in the beginning is so crucial, because this can have major impacts years down the line that we could have navigated through well in advance. So, all right.
Yes, that's good. That's good. I mean, these other questions are probably things that might come up, but we kind of answered most of them. Like who approves the repairs? This is if in either case, a death, divorce, and there's other scenarios too where someone is the sale is forced. Someone loses their job, or there's painful circumstances that force a sale, and it's beyond our control, right?
Yes.
So, who chooses the list price? Who prepares the house? What if one spouse is still living there? We talked about that.
Yep.
How do you handle the showings? How do you keep the house from becoming another battleground?
Yeah.
Right. These are deep questions that get unveiled as we go through the process, and it's something that you can maybe discuss with your siblings if it's an inherited situation, or your former partner if you're divorcing, to try to establish the team and answer these questions up front, to lay out the expectations is helpful, because then you can kind of fall back on what was agreed upon. Not that doesn't change from time to time, but it does help at least establish that framework.
And it's costly. One of my clients that we closed is a good friend. Years down the line, he was like, gosh, had I known how expensive this would have been, because I probably would have tried harder to make it work.
I know, I've heard that from lots of friends too, because it is. I mean, I never like to give any personal details of my situation that would uncover my ex-husband. So I won't say any of that on here, but it is costly, and it is a burden. And so if that's you're going through that, you're trying to navigate these complicated, difficult life circumstances. we're here for you.
Yeah.
We're here for you. Hopefully you have a team already if you're already going through it. But if you don't, we're here for you. And we have a list of, attorneys and CPAs and financial planners that can help you work through it as well.
Yeah. So anyhow, guys, I hope you found this topic helpful. If there's something in particular in your situation that we didn't cover, DM us. We would love to be a resource for you and just help you navigate through, again, what we consider a highly emotional process.
Yeah.
And hopefully help you guys sort out, how to sort through this and put a game plan together. So,
yes.
all right, guys, we'll see you next week.
Okay,
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.